I've been afraid of nearly everything I've done. Since starting a business, everything has been out of my comfort zone. Everything has been something I didn't know how to do previously. But because I love that feeling of progress, I love that feeling of being awake and alive and like things are moving forward, it's worth it. Welcome to the podcast with Kilee Nichols. I'm Kilee, founder and CEO of the life-changing accessories brand Nickel Suede and the successful style blog One Little Mama. I made the unlikely transition from stay-at-home mom to founder and entrepreneur. It takes a lot of courage to make a change like that, but I love the growth and the confidence that's come from stepping out of my comfort zone. This is the podcast for people who want to be inspired to be brave, to take a chance, and to change their life. I'll be sharing stories and actionable takeaways about working with your spouse, being a working mom, starting and growing a business, confidence, motivation, and more. So get ready to get inspired and to get started with Kilee Nichols. Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. I'm Kilee. I'm excited to get going on this podcast. It's been a project that's been kind of rolling over in my mind for a couple months. And then we've been practicing and getting ready to launch it over the last probably 6 weeks. So really excited to start getting some of this content out there. This will be a recurring theme through the podcast, but I definitely was nervous to get going on something new like this. And so it's been fun to practice and to really figure out what to do a podcast about. I know that that's kind of the next avenue of where people are listening to things and wanting information, and I know we have a lot to share. So starting with that, I said, let's just do it. Let's get going. So I wanted to talk today a little bit about where the name came from with Kilee Nichols. It sounds pretty generic, but it actually has a fun story behind it. So when I was in high school, I was wanting to run for student council, and so I decided to run for senior class president. And if you knew me back then, I think you would have been people were surprised that I ran because I was pretty quiet, introverted. I wasn't outspoken leader or anything, but I wanted to do it. And so I knew I wanted to stand out. I definitely always wanted to be a little bit different. That was my thing. So I decided to go with a fortune cookie campaign. So we bought fortune cookies in bulk on the internet. I don't even know how I figured out how to do that back then. That was 15 years ago, but I got fortune cookies in bulk and passed them out around the school. And then I had my dad, who's an artist, help me blow up graphics of big fortune cookie papers. And so we had these fortunes, and at the end of each fortune, I took like a red Sharpie marker and I wrote "with Kilee" at the end of it. So, there was all these fortunes in the hallways of high school that said things like "a fresh start will put you on your way with Kilee," or "a lifetime of happiness lies ahead of you with Kilee." And so it was my kind of quirky way of trying to show everybody that, hey, life will be better if you have me as your class president. And it totally worked. I won the election, and it was just kind of a fun way to go after that. So the podcast is called With Kilee Nichols, and I hope that with me and with my stories and the stories that you're going to hear and thoughts and our experiences, you'll find that you are inspired to have a better life, go after the things that you want, and kind of go through the challenges maybe that you have as a mom or a small business owner or someone starting a business, working with your spouse. All of those things are going to be covered here as far as things that I've experienced and Soren, my husband, and I are going through. So hopefully life will get better with Kilee Nichols as well. So I haven't always been an entrepreneur. I wasn't like a serial, I wasn't selling things on the school bus or things like that. I also haven't always been very brave or bold. Like I said, I've always wanted to be different and kind of stand out. I spent the entire year, I think my 8th grade year, doing my hair a different way every single day. And it earned me Best Hair Award, but it got pretty crazy and it was fun, but I just always liked to be different and stand out, but I was very shy. And so I thought today I would tell a little bit about some of my backstory of like, how did I become an entrepreneur? How did I end up founding 2 businesses? I have a style blog, One Little Mama, and then my husband and I started a jewelry business called Nickel Suede in 2014. And both of those have been successful businesses. I still run them each, and Nickel Suede is my husband and I's full-time job and our careers, and we're continuing to grow that. So how did that even start? Because I definitely started life and kind of my expectation of what I was going to do as stay-at-home mom kind of being the end goal. So a little bit about my backstory. I grew up in Kansas City and loved growing up here, but thought I was going to leave and never come back after I went to college. But went to college in Utah at BYU, and all growing up, I had always been very successful at anything that I did go after. I stayed away from things that made me nervous. I stayed away from things that made me scared. And I only did things that I knew I would be really successful at. So even going after that senior class presidency thing was kind of an uncharacteristic move for me then, because it was a little bit unknown. But I knew I was great at art and I was good at writing. And so I decided to go after that in college. So I applied to the art program, got a small scholarship, and said, okay, I'm going to go into art. And when I went to school, I was crushed. I was crushed by how not great I was compared to everybody else. I wasn't in the best anymore. And so that was my first difficulty of meeting that obstacle, and I totally crumbled. I did not push through. I did not say, that's okay, I can, overcome this. So I chose not to push past that fear, and I decided to take a different route. And I went and I did nutritional science instead. I had always been interested in food and nutrition. And so I said, okay, science is hard for me. I'm going to try to go do that. And then, if I'm not 1,000% successful, it's kind of expected because science is hard for me. But I went after that. The interesting thing is that choice was definitely fueled by fear because I was afraid of not being successful in art. And I was actually struggling with an eating disorder through high school and college. And so my interest in food and nutrition actually kind of came from that difficulty that I was going through and that kind of obsession with food and control and things like that. So very fear-based, right? Like you're getting this, that's kind of how I made decisions. And so I went into nutrition. I did well, met my husband, got married. And after we got married, we both graduated, we moved to Seattle. And I was really lost at that point. I had a kind of another meltdown. I was planning on going to graduate school for nutrition, and I had been accepted to the program I wanted to get into. And when I found out I was expecting, I kind of had to shift gears and change plans. So Soren went to work at the job that was lined up for him, and I was home and didn't go to more schooling. And so I kind of was lost. I didn't have anything to do. It was a really, really tough period of just feeling like totally worthless and alone, and excited about having a baby, but it just personally was a really hard time. So after we had my son, Easton, I had been working at the Gap, Gap Kids, and that was the only place that really I could find a job. Wasn't super proud of it, although I did love the discount and the baby clothes. But after we had Easton, I was dressing him in clothes from Gap, and one afternoon we were getting him dressed to go to a picnic and putting on his onesie and his pants and these little jeans, and my husband said, why does he have jeans with belt loops and they don't make baby, why doesn't he have a belt? He needs a baby belt. And so he and I kind of did our first DIY together, our first creative effort of okay, well, I think I have a skinny belt in my closet. And I went and grabbed it. It was just a little thin brown one. And so Soren cut it down with, I think, scissors or a razor blade and made this tiny, tiny belt. And it was adorable. And just this little belt that actually started quite a few things for us. So we showed people it, and it kind of got my wheels spinning hey, why doesn't anybody sell these? We should sell these. We should make these. And, well, you made this one, Soren. Do you think you could make more? And that was kind of when Etsy was taking off, and I didn't know anything about Etsy. I didn't know anything about selling online. I didn't know anything about websites. I had not gone to school for any business or anything like that. And so that point in my life, I really was looking for something, and finding this little belt that I could maybe look at trying to sell was such an exciting opportunity. And I started to feel awake and alive for the first time in months and months and months. And so I got going on that. I said, okay, well, let's find a store that maybe we can buy leather at, or buckles or things like that. And Soren was working at Eddie Bauer at the time, and we would go to the sample sale and buy adult belts there for $1, and we would cut them down into tiny belts, and we would make them in our apartment on our little teeny concrete front step and be hammering these little rivets in at night. And I was learning how to take pictures of belts with our little digital camera we got for our wedding that was just terrible quality, but it was so exciting, and I felt so proud of these early pictures. Like, ooh, I staged this little belt on this little shelf with this little baby book, and it was just, I thought I was awesome. And I was, because I was making progress. I was moving forward again, and I had missed that feeling from college. College kind of artificially gives you that, you always have someone telling you what to do, how to make progress, what's next, what's due. And I didn't know how to do that for myself until we found these little belts and started this business. So started an Etsy shop called One Little Belt, and it was our side hustle for, when was it? We started in 2009, and I think we stopped doing it in about 2015, but it was such a great, exciting time. And I, after that, when, later on I started my blog, and that was another successful business for us. And I get lots of questions about, how do I start a business, or how do I start a blog, or how do I start, this side thing that I want to do? And that's kind of what I wanted to just put out there today. I'm sure I'll do more podcasts about, how to blog or how to get started on things. But the thing about starting a blog or starting social media is that things are always changing. Things are always updating. The trends and how to do things just changes. But what I do think is more important and most important to start with is, like, why are you starting a business? Why are you starting a blog? Why are you learning this new skill? Why are you going after, this maybe certification or this or that? Because if you start with making money, like, how do I start a blog and make money? Or you start with trying to go after, success in those ways, I think you're going to burn out when the hard times come, because there's a lot of ups and downs to being an entrepreneur and being a blogger and being a business owner. So really authenticity, like the authentic, why are you doing it? And so what I found for myself is the number one reason that I start businesses, or I started a blog, or that I would recommend going after something that excites you, is that it makes you feel alive. That alive feeling is what has fueled so many things. And I've been afraid of nearly everything I've done since starting a business. Everything has been out of my comfort zone. Everything has been something I didn't know how to do previously. But because I love that feeling of progress, I love that feeling of being awake and alive, and like things are moving forward, it's worth it to me. I love putting something of value out into the world, and hopefully inspiring other people and helping them learn something and teaching. And I really feel like if you're willing to put value out into the world, then that value will come back to you eventually. But you got to be willing and have the heart in it to say, I just want to add value. I just want to help. I just want to have this other purpose besides being driven by money or success. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was about regret, and they were saying, what's the number one? Do people regret things they didn't do more, or things they did do more? And they said that people more often regret the things they didn't do. And I think because it's like that uncertainty of like, what if I would have done that? What would have happened? Time passes anyways. So what if I would have done that? But if someone chooses to go after something, to take a risk, the regret isn't there, because you learned something along the way. You had an experience, and you figure out, how to do better. So I always encourage people to just start and just go after something, because then you are moving forward. Even if you don't know what you're doing or how to do it, you'll figure that out. So, same thing with this podcast. It's the same thing for me. I'm just starting, and I know I'm going to learn and grow from it. And I hope that by sharing my real experience as a mom, as an entrepreneur, as a business founder, as someone who's married to their partner in their business, all of those things hopefully can add value and help you and inspire you and find ways that you can also go after whatever the thing is that you're wanting to do with your life, and that will help you feel most like yourself and the most alive. So excited to share more. I would love to hear in the comments what else you want to hear from me. So what are you interested in? What kind of podcast topics? What questions do you have? Soren is going to be on here with me. I'm going to have interviews with some of my employees, with friends, and there'll be a lot of great things to come. So thanks for listening. We will be publishing all of these podcasts on our YouTube channel for Nickel and Suede. So you can go comment there. Let us know what you want to hear more of and see more of, and follow, like, subscribe there. And then wherever you get your podcasts, like us and subscribe there so you don't miss a thing. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening today to With Kilee Nichols. Stay tuned next week for another episode. And if you can't wait until then, you can find me at onelittle.mama.com, MOMMA, for beauty, our family, style tips, and more. And you can find my business at nickelandsuede.com with the and spelled out. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.